Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Paddington is over. He's heading for the roof.
London. Stranger danger. Keep your eyes down. There's some sort of bear.
Hello.
Hello there.
Mary.
This young bear needs our help, Henry. It's just for one night.
Do bears even have names?
My name is...
Or perhaps you'd like an English name.
An English name?
Paddington.
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 Paddington? Sorry.
From the producer of Harry Potter.
You've literally just brought home a random bear.
He's much more similar than you think. Besides, what's the worst that could happen?
Hi, Andy.
Pedro.
So, we watched Paddington.
Yes.
For our next big series. We've wrapped up the galaxy far, far away, and now we're going to fantastical merry old London.
And darkest Peru.
and darkest Peru, darkest with an H, to visit a wonderful talking bear. What do you think of old Paddington? How did we end up with Paddington as the second in our big franchise season?
He's just so adorable. I mean, seriously, how could we not? When we're doing franchises and series, how could we not include Paddington? So here's a question. As a kid, did you read many of the Paddington books? I know Paddington is largely a British character. British kids probably read him more than American kids. But did you end up ever reading Paddington as a kid?
Absolutely.
You did? Okay.
So my question for you is, because my contention is that there are two families. There are families that adopt Curious George, and there are families that adopt Paddington. You're either a Curious George or you're a Paddington. You can like both of them, but you find affinity with one or the other.
Is this like the Elvis Beatles thing?
I heard this on BuzzFeed. So,
of course.
So
everything I know, I learned from listening to BuzzFeed.
I learned on a BuzzFeed quiz. So were you a Paddington or a Curious George? Because I was definitely, I thought Curious George was so stupid. And I know they're for a little bit of a different...
You're instantly going into that, denigrating anyone who was a Curious George, like me.
You're a Curious George?
Yes.
You're not a Paddington? I would have pegged you as a Paddington.
Well, especially with my mom being Australian, like I feel like it seems like I should have read a lot more Paddington, but I don't know.
Should have.
I mean, I must have read some Paddington as a kid, but really, like, I just don't know. Like, I'm familiar with the character, but I could not, I don't know if I ever owned a Paddington book. I don't know. I don't think that it was something that I regularly read, whereas Curious George, I definitely read. Many Curious George books.
That's it. That's really interesting. No, I'm not saying that people.
Yeah, you are.
All right. This is what we're going to do. You're in my weakened state. You've decided to take advantage of me, which is totally on par for somebody who has such a legacy of cheating and bullying on the Flick Chart member bonus special, which you can find in your member bonus feed anytime. Andy, I think today Curious George is fine. I just always found much more of an affinity. You would think I would, like when I told you when I was a kid, I liked Ewoks. I don't like Ewoks anymore. Somehow I still love Paddington. I love Paddington. A Bear Called Paddington was a staple in my house, but I think there was one where Paddington, it's like Paddington and the Queen or Paddington at the Palace or something. That was also a delightful book. We had my grandmother used to get me the like Paddington pop-up books. Like they're just we had Paddington all over the house. So that was my young reads. I love Paddington. So this movie, you can imagine, hits me in the right spot.
Do you know how many Paddington books there were? 7,000.
Is that amazing? And they've sold more than 30 trillion copies.
It looks like 29. Looks like 29 Paddington books from 1958 to 2018. The 2018 was Paddington Turns Detective and Other Funny Stories. I don't know if that was also written by Michael Bond, who had written all of the books. He died in 2017 at the age of 91. I don't know if he'd already written it. It was published posthumously or somebody else came in to finish it. I'm not sure, but certainly had a long legacy of writing the Paddington books. And, I'm not familiar with any of his other series, the Olga de Polga series, the Monsieur Pamplemousse series. I feel very left out, I suppose, of this part of childhood that that so many other kids enjoyed. I feel like Paddington was there, but never something that I spent much time with. I feel sad about that.
I think you should feel sad about that.
Yeah, this is going to be a therapy session for today's episode, everybody.
No.
So be prepared,
Andy.
No?
You are loved.
Okay.
You are loved, just like Paddington. You're a family of choice.
Thank you. Thank
you. You're Paddington's forever family.
I was trying to find an online list of like a ranking of bear, like fictional bear characters. I couldn't find anything other than like on Ranker, which is not, it only depends on how many people came in to rank stuff. I don't know if this counts, but I'm going to just use it because it is the one that I could track down. What would you guess is the number one fictional bear on this particular thing? We'll go through the top 10 or so.
Winnie the Pooh. Or
Winnie the Pooh, of course. Is
okay, then number 2 is Smokey.
No, Smokey is a very American bear, and so I don't know. I would think that he's lower on the list because folks who are international are probably completely unaware of him.
Okay,
so he's not number 2.
All right, so is it Paddington?
No.
Is there another bear? Oh, wait, there's, is it a Berenstain Bear?
Berenstain's on the list, but not that high. Number 2 is Baloo from the Jungle Book.
Okay, no, I'll give him that.
Book series, just like Winnie the Pooh, book series, and somebody who was animated in Disney films. Number 3, Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, Yogi and...
Yogi Bear.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Paddington. Number 5.
Nothing.
More of a puppet.
A puppet bear?
Yeah.
I don't know. What puppet bear is there?
What rhymes with puppet?
Fozzie?
Muppet. Yes, Fozzie. Fozzie is number 5.
Okay.
So those are the top 5. From there, it's like, things that I was like, well, I guess, like Little John from Walt Disney's Robin Hood, Boo Boo, who's, of course, with Yogi. Then number 8, Kenai from Brother Bear. It's like, why is that even on the list? Number 9, Smokey Bear. Number 10, the Berenstain Bears. So Care Bears don't make it to the list till number 12. And one of your favorites, Ted, is on the list as number 14. So.
Hey, he made the top 20. Can we go back to Fozzie for a second? Is Fozzie first a bear or a Muppet?
Well, his name is Fozzie Bear. I don't know.
Are
any
Muppets.
of these, none of these are actual, like, why is that a question? None of these are actual bears. It's like, who's more of a bear, Paddington or Fozzie?
Officer Point. Really, you've really taken me down a peg. The reason I bring this up is actually Brian's in the chat room. If you remember at truestory.fm/TNR-membership, you could jump in and chat along with the live stream in our Discord community. He asked the leading question, is Kermit first a Muppet or a frog? And that is my question, because to me, Fozzie is first a Muppet, Kermit is first a frog. And so with that bit of like discontinuity, I have to let the whole point go because I could spin on this all day and we have a movie to talk about. But I just want you to know that's where my head is on this. You're not going to say anything to that?
I don't even know what to say to that.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, So Paddington Bear, this series, did you take your kids to these in the theaters, or were your kids already too old? Where were you with these movies when they came out? 2014 is this one.
Yeah, we didn't go to the theaters. We saw both of the Paddington movies we saw at home. My kids, I think my son at this point was, he was introducing himself to superhero movies and things of that ilk. And I think going to a movie to see Paddington, he would have felt a little bit old, even though he would have been right in the right spot. And even now, both my kids are sweethearts and softies, and they watch this movie and tear up at the end, and just the right way. So but no, we didn't theater this. Did you?
Oh yeah, my kids are younger than yours, and so it was an easy one to take the kids to, and both of the films. And so, so we saw both of them in theaters, and it was just delightful. They loved them and still love them, even though I couldn't get either of them to watch it with me this particular go around. Oftentimes they just take the attitude, I've already seen that.
Yeah, I get that too.
That's what I get out of that.
But I have to get these next 20 levels of Fortnite.
Yeah, right. It's like I'm right in the middle of this game.
Yeah, I need you to go watch this movie on your phone in the bathroom because I'll be using the TV playing Fortnite real loud. That's the kind of stuff he says.
Yeah. But I do love it, and so I had a lot of fun revisiting it. I really enjoy it. And I guess we should just say before we jump in, Paddington surprisingly was rated PG at the time of its release for mild action and rude humor. Rude. It's the British. It's because the Brits are so rude.
That is true.
That's where
very
the
rude
humor comes from. Yeah, very rude Brits in this film.
And so that brings us to our principal performers.
Oh, we're going to start there. Principal for performers.
I only want to start with one. We can go in other directions after there, but I have to just say Ben Whishaw as the voice of Paddington is, and I don't, do you have a list? And I'm sure you probably do because this is what you do. Anybody who's ever played a voice of Paddington in the past, do you know?
Any Paddington voice?
Yeah.
I don't have that list handy. There have been other Paddingtons. There have been a bunch of TV Paddingtons from 1966 all the way to 2019. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. In fact, a noted voice of Paddington, even for this version of it, the dub of it, was Volodymyr Zelensky, current Ukrainian president. That's fun. But Ben Whishaw, for me, in the British English performance of this film is extraordinarily good. He captures all of the heart and sincerity, and nothing that he says in this fantastical universe of his journey from darkest Peru it forces me to question the family comedy of it, the comedy reality of it. Like, I'm never brought out of it because he goes over the top with Paddington. It is perfectly restrained, and he gets into all kinds of crazy stuff, and his voice has to be essentially the straight man to his physicality, and I think it works very, very well. So in terms of character creation, I am on Team Paddington. This is one of the really, really great ones in family animation.
What's funny is when the film was first announced and they were filming and stuff, they had Colin Firth cast as doing the voice of Paddington. And I must have read that somewhere, and then I never realized from there till the time I saw the film that he had been, they just felt like his voice really wasn't suitable for the character, so he voluntarily dropped out of the film, and they ended up bringing Ben Whishaw on to do the part. I don't think I must have missed all of that, because as I was watching the film that first time, I just remember going, gosh, Colin Firth, that's a really interesting, like, he's doing something with his voice that I can't quite figure out. Like, I totally went through the whole film like, wow, Colin Firth is really pulling something off, because he doesn't even sound like himself. And then, of course, at the end, I was like, oh, that's because he didn't do it. It really threw me that first time, because I was convinced that Ben Wishaw's voice was Colin Firth, like, channeling something.
That's funny. Well, the other voice is the TV show Charlie Adler. This is the 1989 TV show, which is one you might, like others might have seen. And Charlie Adler was a solid voice, but Ben Whishaw just sort of became it. What's funny is that I do think in his time, even in this film, we could have had other actors like Hugh Bonneville and Jim Broadbent conjure that same sort of spirit of these of Paddington. Their voices are just too old. But I think this is really fun because Ben Whishaw, like, let's just wait for Ben Whishaw in his 70s to play dad in, or 60s to play dad in a version of this where a young Ben Whishaw is playing an animated character. Like, it feels like we're looking at his dad in Jim Broadbent or Hugh Bonneville in this movie in terms of casting across generations.
Are you a Whishaw head? Whishaw? What would you call yourself?
Am I a Whishaw head? A wish? Am I a wisher?
A wisher?
Let's say, I'm a fan. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Where did you first encounter the Wish?
Oh, geez. The movies I can think of him in that I liked a lot, I'm almost sure I saw him and didn't think of him as anything in, I don't know, maybe The International. I definitely first remember him almost immediately as Q.
Yeah.
But it's one of those funny ones, like going back to, I just watched Layer Cake not long ago.
Yeah, and that's when I saw after, like later in
knowing who he was.
Yeah, after I'd already known who he was. But stuff like that, Perfume, The Story of a Murderer, I'm Not There, The International. Bright Star is one where I remember he got a lot of notice as playing John Keats in that film. But really, I guess when I look through the list, it was Skyfall and Cloud Atlas that same year, the first two films that I probably saw him in before I ended up going back and watching any of those other things. And then he's one of those people who just kind of pops up in a lot of things, like The Zero Theorem, The Danish Girl, which we've talked about on the show, In the Heart of the Sea, we've talked about on the show. And I always enjoy seeing him. It's just he's one of those people who he never seems to be in big things, like taking big lead roles. And that's, I don't know, I kind of get frustrated by that because I find him such an enjoyable performer, and I wish he was doing more.
Yeah, me too. And, I'm not sure did you ever go back and see The Personal History of David Copperfield?
I didn't.
He was in that, and it's an exceptional movie. I had a blast with it, an absolute blast. But he's also in that one, and it's the same sort of thing. Like, I want to see him in more and bigger because I think he can. I think he certainly can truck in those movies. It's funny, like you look at the Danish Girl, it very much feels to me like Ben Whishaw and Eddie Redmayne are, I don't want to say interchangeable, but have a very similar tone as performers. And it is curious to me how Ben Whishaw hasn't taken on more of those kinds of performances like Eddie Redmayne has taken on. They feel like they're of a piece to me.
Well, he certainly has been doing a lot of theater, and maybe that's why. Like, he keeps, like, if you look at the list of performances he's doing in theater, like, it's a pretty robust list. And so maybe he's doing a lot of stuff there. Interestingly, like, the most recent thing he's listed as doing in theater was in the play Norma Jean Baker of Troy, in which he played Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Yeah. That does seem like an Eddie Redmayne kind of part, too.
Yeah.
Like, they're going out for the same parts. Let's just say that.
Well, regardless, I mean, he has a wonderful voice. And in a film like this, he brings a sense of wonder, a sense of kindness, and a sense of youth that is still looking for new experiences and stuff. And I really get a sense of that from his voice. And I can see that Colin Firth probably just doesn't have that. And I don't know, it could be an age thing. I mean, Wishaw's 41 right now. So he was, 34 at the time he was doing this. And, I think that, it's a good age. I think that he just feels young and it works well for this character.
Yes. Okay. So that's Paddington. Now, where would you like to go about the movie?
I guess the big question is, in the scope of adaptations, this Star Wars we talked about, that was the first series that we talked about this season. Paddington is next, and it is, as we've already discussed, based on a very, very popular series of children's books. In the scope of adapting something that, I mean, these children's books are, they're children's books. They're not very long. They're fairly simplistic stories, and just kind of looking at these adventures that Paddington is having. But in the scope of what they're doing here, let's talk about kind of like how they do as far as adapting the story and like what they accomplish. And are they able to kind of give us a sense of the character from the book without kind of turning it into something else here? Like, for example, The Cat in the Hat, a Dr. Seuss adaptation that really had to go astray from the book in order to kind of make that into something and kind of went off the rails.
Well, I don't feel like they did any real damage to Paddington Bear, right? It feels very much to me that this movie honors and expands the universe of Paddington. Like, I don't recall the, all of the machinery for making marmalade in the trees in Darkest Peru.
I know,
right?
I want one of those now in my backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could have those in the trees, we have a lot of trees. So I feel like because the way the book starts, it's been so long, but my sense is that the Browns find Paddington with no backstory to the actual, like, we don't go to Peru very first thing, right? I think I don't even remember the discussion of going to Peru. That's going to trick me, I think. But my sense is it's very much the family story first, and then we get that expanded universe elsewhere. But I don't know. I don't know if that improves it or not. It certainly doesn't damage it for me. I like that. I like the little adventure backstory, that we get early on, and that there is, there's a little bit of intensity, and we have the danger element, and we lose the Uncle Bear, and
named after his favorite wrestler or something.
Yeah.
Pastuso. That was Michael Gambon as
Right.
Uncle Pastuso.
Uncle
and
Pastuso.
Imelda Staunton as Aunt Lucy. I love that. Those two.
Yeah.
That was a great little bit.
Well, and it sets up the relationship between Paddington and Aunt Lucy, that they, with his letter writing campaign to her in the old Bears home, the home for retired bears in Lima. And so I think that is, I think that's just lovely. So I don't know. What's your sense of how they start the adventure?
Well, as somebody who is completely not familiar with the books, it's hard for me to specify, like, did they pull this from a book? Everywhere that I have looked, it just says the film was based on the Paddington books by Michael Bond. So my sense is that it's not even like they took a story. Like, is there ever a taxidermist that he comes up against in any of the books? Like, I don't know if that was ever...
I don't know.
I don't know. And so to that end, I feel like they probably just pulled a lot of bits and pieces from kind of the tone of the Paddington books, along with his adventures with the Browns and stuff, and kind of crafted this story and gave us a backstory with Peru and all of this. And I don't know, as somebody who's just not very familiar with the books at all, I just felt like they were capturing the essence of at least what I knew about Paddington. I would love to talk to somebody who's from Britain, who grew up reading all of the books and knows the character inside and out, to really get a sense as to how how well they did as far as kind of adapting from the books. But what we get genuinely feels like a story. It's a family film, and it feels like they captured the essence of this character, who really it's all about kind of manners and kindness, and these little animal characters in these books. They're always innocently getting into trouble. Same thing with Curious George. And kind of like how they get out of those scrapes, and that kind of becomes an element of them. And to that end, I think they do it well. And also the idea of, like, this little bear who wants to help and is taking on, I guess in the second film, we'll get more of the, like, taking on odd jobs sort of thing to kind of help. But, we get him kind of, trying to do things at the house and stuff here. And so,
well, to your point, I think some of the pieces of the adaptation that we need to acknowledge, while I don't necessarily remember all the machinery of the woods, there are elements of honor and beats from the books that are important. When Paddington is found sitting on his suitcase with a tag around his neck, right, that just says, please take care of me, kind of a thing. It's a very special thing for people who really love the series, and that we get that moment of discovery wrapped up in all of the other bigger moments in the film, I think is very special. The fact that they go to their house at 32 Windsor Gardens is special, because those are like landmarks of the books, and all of those they make really lovely. They don't do anything to damage the history of the books in so making it a CG experience. And so, Yeah, I think that really plays. The fact that they pull it off while making somebody who's never really read the books, feel like it's a whole is great.
Yeah. And, you brought up another point of they animated like the CG bear that we have here. They purposefully didn't do this as a CG film. It's not animated. It's not the next in line of DreamWorks or Pixar or something like that as kind of this franchise that we're going to get in animation. This is a live action film with a CG bear, which, that's a challenge because when you go that route, as opposed to animation, you are more grounded in the real world.
Yeah.
In animation, you can make a more caricaturized bear that feels a little more like the animation styles that you have. I know there's been a number of different animators doing the books over the years. So you could have, pull from any of those different artists doing Paddington and kind of go with that as kind of the animation style. Once you latch on to the real world and you have a real world family playing the Browns and you're set in real London, you now have the challenge of going, okay, now it has to look like a real bear. It can't be this kind of cartoonish bear coming out of the jungle. It needs to kind of have this sense of realism. And that was kind of a challenge. And, I was trying to do some digging on how do Peruvians feel about this whole Paddington character? Like what's, the constant calling of it darkest Peru and things like that. I'm like, there's some things about that seem a little interesting. And, I found some interesting articles about, the Peru and UK relations and things like that and how Paddington, they don't bring up a lot in some of those relations. Not that they're genuinely saying much about Peru through these, but there is an element there. But I was trying to find stuff about it, and you do actually have these Andean bears that live. The Andean speckled bears do live in kind of this area in the Andes, and
darkest Peru.
Darkest Peru. You can find them in Peru, and there are actual tours. There are these Paddington tours that you can go down to Peru and take these tours, so you can go to see. You may not see the bears, but they will take you through some areas where the bears may be found. And some of these are actually like the places like where the Incas were, like in Machu Picchu and stuff. And but it is interesting, and it does make me wonder how much Michael Bond had pulled from, things that he knew about these Andean speckled bears when he was coming up with this, or if he was just kind of coming up with some fanciful thing in his head. And I think there's something interesting about that. But regardless, they did have to figure out a bear style. And Paddington doesn't look like the Andean speckled bear, which has a lot more spots and stuff, and spots specifically around its eyes that look like spectacles. He just looks like kind of a little brown bear is what he looks like. But they do a good job. And that was, I think, a big challenge, is coming up with this character that we're going to buy as something that can be in this real world. And I think that was an immediate challenge of the film, to make it believable so that this whole story could work. Do you find that it worked?
Well, he doesn't speak Spanish.
He doesn't speak Spanish. He speaks bear. He only speaks English because the explorer happened to come through.
He speaks English with an English accent, but I just sort of feel like there should be a little bit more of a rolled R occasionally. No, I think it works very well, but I think specifically to the character design or to the artistry of the CG bear, you could tell they're really pushing some limits here. I mean, I think, it feels in some sequences, there's a particular montage the shower montage, where he's getting a bath and it keeps cutting back and cutting away. And every time it cuts back to him, there's a different exploration of digital fur. Do you know what I'm talking about? This
is when the kids are bathing him, not when he's in the bathroom by himself. Yeah.
No, this is later when the kids are bathing him. He's getting him wet. They're pouring things on him. He's got the wet fur, sticky fur, and then, good Lord, the hair dried fur. And all three feel like just, a masterclass in fur dynamics at the time. And it doesn't end up distracting me, I think, because if I came to it now, 2022, it might feel a little bit janky, a little bit shiny, but looking at it with the gift of knowing where we were at the time, it feels really great. Like, it is a great, great character.
Yeah. I mean, hair in CG characters really started, they started really playing around with what they could do with it, right? I believe in Monsters, Inc. From that point on, it has been an amazing evolution, kind of watching what they've been able to do with CG hair. And every time I watch something else, I'm always that much more impressed because of how they have continued to work on that and improve it. And by this point in 2014, it was genuinely quite impressive to see that they pulled off these bears really well. Like when Uncle Pastusto puts the hat on his head that's full of marmalade, and the marmalade kind of pours down him. Like I can sense that. Like, it just seems like it's working. And so it's very impressive what they're pulling off here. And so, yeah, to that end, I buy into it. And I buy that all these people in the London area that come in contact with Paddington are interacting with something that is actually there. Like, I end up finding it works really well, and they made it work. And that's, that was the first big hurdle that they had to come across with this.
I think of other animal characters. Because I think Narnia came out well before this one, almost a decade, right? That was our first exploration of Aslan, and I remember thinking how great that fur was, and so I'd have to go watch it.
I can't remember. I know. I mean, they've done 3 of those, and I know they've actually they've scheduled the Silver Chair. I don't know. I was surprised to see that. Wow, it's actually, they're going to continue that. But Aslan, that was 2005, and that was just a few years after Monsters, Inc., which was 2001. So yeah, you can see the evolution of that over time. And I'm trying to think Avatar obviously has a lot of different creatures and stuff. I'm trying to remember if any of them particularly had hair. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
It's a lot of like leathery skin stuff. I don't remember a lot of furry stuff. So fur is hard. I think until we get to weird, I think they set the standard with Tully and Aslan, and then I don't necessarily think that Paddington doesn't necessarily move anything forward in the space beyond what we had been doing there. I don't know, but it's really good.
All right, so enough about fur. Let's kind of talk more about the cast. So we have the Browns. We've got Hugh Bonneville, Sally Hawkins, and the kids, Madeline Harris and Samuel Joslin. Plus Mrs. Bird lives with them, Julie Walters. What do you think of them as a family, and how do they play for you?
Oh, they're amazing. It's one of those that really works to me. Although I have to think Hugh Bonneville and Sally Hawkins, what's their real age difference?
Hugh Bonneville was born in 1963, and Sally Hawkins was born in 1976. So 13 years.
13. It's not too bad. It's a thing. But I adore them, and I adore them the way they are portrayed, the way they give them the backstory, where he was they were motorcycle riding rebels up as they pulled up to the hospital to give birth to their first child, and then they came out as fearful suburban dwellers. I thought that was a great transformation. I think Sally Hawkins is a lovely maternal heart for this movie. She is delightful, from her discovery of Paddington, her affinity with Paddington, her adoration of him and her support of him is really great. And Hugh Bonneville gets an actual transformation as the stubborn dad, his reconciliation with his past and understanding that, going forward, it's okay to take some risk and to live his life as a result of his experience with Paddington. This is another one of those change characters. Our exploration of all of these characters in the family happens as a result of their transformations in and around Paddington. Paddington, Andy, Paddington is Captain America. That's what I'm trying to tell you. He doesn't have to change. Everyone changes around him.
Wow. So in that end, I guess he's Captain Carter, maybe a little more. He's British.
You're right.
I do love the Browns, and yes, we haven't really talked about the filmmaking style of this yet, but I love the way that King puts the film together. It's incredibly fun. I love this fast-paced style of storytelling, the smartness of using the space around, like when Paddington is at the train station and he's standing under a sign that says lost and found, but the light for found is broken. And so it just says lost and then she comes over and she's talking to him, and then she says, why don't you come home with us? And all of a sudden the light flickers on and it says found. I was just like, oh my God, that's just like, I love that style of filmmaking where they're taking account of everything in the frame into the way that they're telling the story. And that bit with the Mr. and Mrs. Brown, when they go to the hospital, is one of the funniest bits in the film, where they go in as these hippie lovers and they have their kid, and
we're
when
never
they
gonna
come
change, right?
He's totally dressed in a smart suit. Their motorcycle has been changed for a very sensible beige Volvo. And, he's being super protective. And it's just like over the course of the time they had the baby. And it's like playing with stuff like that is just, it's so fun. And that's like, you don't get that style of filmmaking often enough. And I love it when filmmakers aren't afraid to play and to do some of that as they tell their story, because it makes for just a fun world that they're crafting. And this is a film. Like, you have these tools at your fingertips. It's a visual story. And yes, it's a story. There's dialogue and we're getting a plot and all that, but you have all of these visual elements you can incorporate into what you're doing, whether it's through editing or what you see in the frame. And so it's a lot of fun to see what people are doing with that. I really enjoy what Paul King is doing with the story. And I love what he does with the Browns. It's just, they're a great family. They work exceptionally well for this.
Yeah. I definitely agree. The house, we should say, in terms of, let's just say the house is alive in a lovely way. The house obviously is a set piece for a lot of big physical stuff, but there is a wonderful, speaking of being aware of the entire environment, the way the tree grows up the spiral staircase wall, every time I see it, my heart swells. It is just a lovely sort of emotional gauge of the heart of the movie. And when the leaves all flutter away and the branches shrink, and as you realize things have gotten darker for the Browns, I think it's just really touching. Yeah,
you're talking about it's a painting of
it's a
tree
painting,
that goes up the wall of the spiral staircase up the 3 stories of the house.
Yeah, it's just awesome. And that's all before we get to our primary antagonist, on the other side of the character unit, Nicole Kidman. What do you think of Nicole?
I love her. I think she clearly knows she's in like this fun family film, and they're doing something very. She gets to do something different, which for Nicole Kidman, playing this taxidermist who is the daughter of this geologist who had gone to darkest Peru, had discovered Paddington's family, and had been so enamored with them that he refused to bring back a specimen, which at the time was what the Geological Society or the Geographers Guild did. They went to places, explored, killed animals, brought back specimens so that they could put it in the museum and put it on display and then have their name there and everything. And he was enamored with the family. As we see, Uncle Pastuso saves him from the deadly scorpion, and he befriends them and they befriend him, and they learn from him. And that's why Paddington goes to London, because of the letter that they had received. It turns out she is the daughter of this geographer who had been shamed because he didn't bring back this specimen. And there's all these elements of the story when they go to the Geographers Guild, et cetera, et cetera. But we kind of find this whole story out as the story progresses, and that her goal has become to find this bear and to bring him to her place where she can skin him and stuff him and put him on display so that she can finally get her name and in turn her father's name the respect that it deserves. And it works well. It works in context of the story, of the way that they set the story up with this geographer right out of the gate, and we kind of get the whole thing. And I think she's clearly having fun with it. She's I don't know. I have a fantastic time watching her in the film, and I think she's having a great time. I just love it. You said that. You came into that, though, saying it as if you weren't so sure about her performance.
Well, I needed you to verify my own opinion, as I often do. I like her a lot. I guess my only question was, the setup of the movie is that Paddington, and family meet the geologist, whatever, the explorer. Yeah. And they have an incredibly warm relationship together and experience. Geographer comes back, and his entire role model behavior to his daughter is, I am of such moral character that I, of course, do not kill and stuff this amazing bear. And I am a good man, right? Geographer is a good man. And what the daughter gets from that message is, I am a bad woman. I am going to kill and stuff this talking intelligent bear, and I am crazy. I don't no disrespect to Nicole Kidman's performance. I think she's amazing because she's just off the rails, and it's so fun to watch her do that. My only criticism is that, like, they expect me to fully embrace that character turn, that she suddenly has such a defense of her dad that she's willing to be straight up evil in the process.
Okay, but where are you getting that she's straight up evil? This is exactly what every other geographer does. We get this from the Geographers Guild. We have an expectation of you. We're paying you. We're sending you out into the world to explore, to bring back all this stuff, including specimens. Her dad is the one who won't do it. And so she is just in line with all of the other people in the Geographers Guild. She just is looking for, she wants her family name to not be muddied anymore. She wants to kind of have that respect again. So I don't think ever that she should be seen as a bad person, because she's just, there's a mentality of these types of people who view all of these animals as just nothing more than something to kill and stuff. And I think that she's right in line with all of that. Like, I just don't think that she's just like, whoa, I'm evil and I'm going to kill this bear. It just happens to be a bear that we get to know and is very kind and cuddly. But if we had gotten to know the little monkey or one of these other animals that she's showing, like the penguins, if this was a story about the penguins that are on display, that person would be seen as evil, but it's not. So I don't know if she's ever meant to be seen as evil, or just somebody who just wants to clear her father's name, not as the person who ended up getting booted from the Geographers Guild and forced to work at a petting zoo.
I feel like there is that someone who could develop a relationship with talking bears would have offspring that would be able to note immediately before grabbing the scalpel and ready to cut into one of the talking bears that the bear was actually talking to her, and that maybe she would stop for a second and say, holy crap, this bear is talking to me. I should probably present the bear alive to the Science Guild before killing it and not able to confirm that the bear was talking. Wouldn't that be a better discovery for science? Don't you think?
So more like Eugene Levy in Splash. He wants to show the mermaid to the other scientists to prove his worth.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the piece that I struggle with a little bit. It's not, and she's wonderful. And I know I absolutely get, we're armchairing a family comedy from years ago, but I just feel like that's the one criticism that I have with this movie, that the evildoer doesn't Like, they could make the evildoer make even more sense in the wackadoo universe of Paddington than they do.
But don't you also feel like, this is a family film and things are a little more broad?
Yes.
We already have this incredibly kind bear. Why not kind of paint a villain who's just a little more villainous? And I don't know. I think she works exceptionally. One of the funniest things, and I think this sets her up right out of the gate, is when this guy comes to talk to her at the beginning of the film, and he's talking to her about, there's this bear there. And she's like, what do you mean there's this bear? Did you follow him? And he's like, no, he got away in the thing. And out of the blue, she just smacks him. And she's like, oh, sorry. And then we find out she throws the knife into the wall, and we go, oh, she's been trying to get these bears for a long time. Like, the way that she plays all of that, it's just like over the top. So I don't know. It fits in context of this story we're getting. I think looking for a more nuanced sort of thing may be pushing it into a different type of film.
Here's the only thing that makes that rational in my headcanon, that every other animal that is currently on display in the British Museum or whatever is actually a talking animal. And therefore, she has no problem killing talking animals. And Paddington is just the next one on the list. But also, she's killing a child, right? Like, this is a young talking animal. We've already seen that it has caretakers. So all of the animals that are currently taxidermied must be talking animals. And that's why it's okay for her to kill this one. And that's why no one else cares that it's a talking animal.
I think that's one of the funniest things about the film, that like, this is just, it's like, there's nothing weird about the fact that it's a bear. Like, I mean, it's a little off. Like, people are like, oh, okay, I didn't think that. But nobody's like, wow, that's a talking bear.
No, what they say is, oh my goodness, give the bear a jacket. That will help clear things up.
The funniest bit in the whole film for me, in relation to kind of like the scope of people's reactions to the fact that it's a bear, is when there's two, but one is when Mrs. Brown goes to the police and is putting in a report. And she's like, well, he's short and he's very kind and he's got big ears and he's a bear. And the policeman looks at her and just goes, well, it fits so many descriptions. It's
not a lot to go on.
It's just, that was so good. And then the other one, of course, is when Mr. Brown is on the phone right away when they bring the bear home, and he calls his insurance company, and he's just talking, and he's just like, well, I just want to check on this, and he's a bear, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, he is a bear. Yeah, like has to go back. Like, he just throws that out there so quickly. It just they play it up so well throughout the film, where it's never a big surprise, and it just, I don't know, it fits in context of this world so well.
You mentioned the cabbie.
I didn't mention the cabbie.
You didn't? I thought you mentioned the cabbie, where he was talking about, and I had a bear in my cab, and I took him over to this place.
No, it was when she was talking to the guy from the shipyard at the beginning of the film. He comes to visit her, and so it's the guy from the shipyard that she first talks to.
Well, I still want to call out the cabbie because it's Matt Lucas, and I love Matt Lucas because I didn't realize Matt Lucas was Matt Lucas. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's been in bit parts. He's been in, he was Tweedledee and Tweedledum and Alice in Wonderland movies, and he was in Bridesmaids. But I know him and love him as one of the co-presenters on The Great British Bake Off, which is so close to my heart, my family's hearts. He's wonderful on that show. He was. I have never seen any Little Britain, which was his sketch show that ran for a number of years in the early aughts. I think he's just great. And so it was fun to see him show up in this very, very small part, in the spirit of no small parts. Matt Lucas, awesome.
Yeah, no, he's fun. Well, and this, to that extent, this film is exceptionally cast. I mean, aside from the Browns and Mrs. Bird and Nicole Kidman, you just have all these other parts. Yeah, we already mentioned Michael Gambon and Imelda Staunton as the other two bears that we meet in Peru, but there's Peter Capaldi as the nosy neighbor, Jim Broadbent as the Hungarian antique shop owner that Mr. Gruber that helps them out, and Matt Lucas you mentioned, and it's just like all of these faces. I don't know, it works really well as this fun group of people that sell this neighborhood in this world that we have here.
At some point, I would like us to have some sort of a bubble chart that connects, like a network graph, that connects every actor. We need to create this so it connects every actor to all the other properties that they've done of the movies that we've talked about on this show. Right? Like the fact that
goodness.
I know that seems it's super important, is what you're saying.
Is there a particular person that spurred this on? Like, what else have we talked about that person has been in?
Well, what would you say for Sally Hawkins? Given that we've never talked about The Shape of Water.
I don't know if we've talked about anything of hers.
Let me first disabuse you.
Never
of that.
Let Me Go.
There you go. That's it.
In a speakeasy, we did talk about that.
We did talk about that. That's what I was looking at. But I was honestly
Godzilla in a film board.
I was thinking first about the crossover between Harry Potter movies. This is the Harry Potter singularity experience because
she has not been in the Harry Potter.
No,
film.
she
is that
hasn't.
What you're saying? Okay,
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this whole thing started because I was looking through her filmography to see if she had been in any Harry Potter movies. She has not.
Gotcha.
But that got me thinking, we need more charts.
Like, I don't think Hugh Bonneville's been in Harry Potter.
But
and you think of
Broadbent has.
Broadbent has, Julie Walters has, along with the other two bears, Imelda Staunton and Michael Gambon. But yeah, you think of people who are British, and it is like there is a Venn diagram of British actors and British actors who have been in Harry Potter films. And I feel like the ones who fall outside of that second circle, it's a very thin line.
Yeah.
Very thin group.
So that's the Venn diagram. I think we need to have a constantly evolving bubble chart that connects all of the British actors that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Well,
and this, I mean, we should say that, David Heyman produced this. This was something that he had been, I think that he latched onto this fairly early on. I want to say like 2007. And I mean, he was one of the producers on the Harry Potter films. Like he had been on and produced that entire franchise. And he came onto this, I think 2007. And it took a while, obviously, for this didn't come out till 2014, for them to kind of get it sorted out. Like he finished all the Harry Potter films and then kind of jumped into this franchise. But I mean, he's been doing a lot of other films. But I mean, he is the one who is really behind this and had been really wanting to make this happen. So you have to give him a lot of credit for doing this. And I think that probably because he was somebody who had been involved in the Harry Potter franchise, that probably gave him what he needed in order to kind of get the green light to do this. So, I mean, a lot of credit goes to him. But of course, we haven't mentioned Paul King as the director who comes on to do this, is somebody who I think, we talked about kind of the style that was used in the storytelling, but I think that a lot of that comes from Paul King and just kind of crafting this, putting it together.
Are you a king? Oh no!
What would you call him?
Would you call him a kingdom? King?
Call him we're one of the king's squires or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, going full royal. That's good. No, I like that. Yeah. Are you one of the kingsmen?
Yeah, one of the kingsmen. I don't think I've seen anything. I mean, his first film was 2009, Bunny and the Bull. I completely never even heard of that film until just looking at his filmography now. And these two films. Right now, he's working on Wonka, which is a new adaptation it's actually a prequel to Charlie and then the Chocolate Factory.
God, so good. I was just saying, I don't think we've had enough of those. Could we get some others in the queue?
It's, I'm curious to see what they do with it. Timothy Chalamet is playing Willy Wonka. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm not saying it's necessary. And I know he's scheduled to do... Actually, I don't know if he's on to direct the third Paddington film. That's going to be Paddington in Peru. But I mean, he got his start in TV, and I don't know much of him. Like, I look at his list of projects that he's done, and I am completely unfamiliar. I'd be curious, again, for any of our British listeners, like what their experience was with Paul King as a director from his TV work, knowing that he then was signed on to do Paddington.
Have you watched any of Space Force?
I haven't.
Apparently, he directed 2 episodes. I did watch the first season. I don't know which episodes. He directed the first episode of season 1. He directed the pilot. And of course, that's why he gets the credit. And episode 4. And that's one of those shows that's that was funny and probably too on the nose for its own good. And I'm curious what the next season will bring, because it was maybe too much. Maybe too much. But you can really, I sort of sense the Paul Kingsman of it. He's it's in the King's land, is what I'm telling you. So it's an interesting little show.
Did you ever hear of The Mighty Boosh? Because that is a series.
No.
He did the whole thing, like 20 episodes. He did all 20 episodes, 2004 to 2007. This sounds interesting. A British comedy television show. It's a surreal comic fantasy, often featured elaborate musical numbers in different genres, such as electro, heavy metal, funk, and rap. Also known for popularizing a style called crimping, short a cappella songs which are present throughout all three series. Takes place in a surreal universe following different characters and several characters, two eccentric failing musicians, as well as Naboo, a mystic alien shaman, and Bolo, a gorilla, and Naboo's familiar. Huh. Okay. Has many animated musical sequences, puppets, and special effects. So I read something like that and I go, okay, the style of that is probably what they latched onto to say, hey, this person might be somebody interesting to tackle something like this kids franchise.
Right.
Yeah,
I do. I count myself as a Kingsman, and I appreciate his style and tone. This sort of magical universe where nobody cares about fuzzy talking bears, especially right before they taxidermy them, is I think they nailed the humor and the just stoicness of it. I think it's really, really great.
It's very sweet. Very sweet.
It's very sweet. Do you see any of Weinstein's fingerprints in it?
You know, that's actually interesting, and it's probably worth bringing up. As far as the production of this, it is produced by, I was surprised, it's the Weinstein Company. It was actually TWC-Dimension.
That was weird, right?
Yeah, I was like, Dimension, that's like their horror line.
Yeah.
It sounds like that they created that in 2013 as a label to distribute projects of mutual interest.
Projects of mutual interest.
I don't know what that means. I guess mutual interest between the Weinstein Company and the Dimension films. But again, why is this in Dimension's realm in any scope? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But then several British and, other companies as well, like Heyday Films, which is, again, David Heyman's company, and Studio Canal, the French company, and TF1 Films Production, also French. So I guess because of that stretch of so many different production companies being involved and distributing it, I didn't get much of a sense of Weinstein's fingerprints in it. And I guess maybe that's a good thing. And maybe because it's British, he didn't feel the need to go in and like do recuts and change it or anything like he has done notoriously for many films that they brought over to distribute from Asia.
Right. I didn't either, thankfully. I did. I just noted at the beginning. It's amazing to me how quickly those impressions change. Like the moment I saw that logo, I was like, oh, I remember why I already go into this with, the walls up. But no, I think the movie was just lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were, well, I guess we can maybe talk about this more with the next film, but I think by the time they got to that next film, they were dealing with many more issues and sold the rights to Paddington 2 along with other ones because they were trying to get out of the bankruptcy hole that they had fallen into. So
smart.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice that at least the next film doesn't have to have that association.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we will be right back, but first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by DePun, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats and the awards at thenumbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
Hey, we didn't really talk about it, Pete, but what do you think about the use of an actual on-screen musicians in films? This film has, I counted 4 moments where things are happening on screen and we just pass by a group that happens to be performing the song that we're hearing at that particular moment. In this case, it was D. Lime featuring Tobago Crusoe.
I love it. And you had just mentioned that there is that the Kingsman, it is in the King's Land. He just did this comedy show, this British comedy show with musical numbers. This feels right in his house, right? Doesn't this feel like, dare I conjure the name, Edgar Wright's sort of style of integration of the entire world into the storytelling? It goes right back to what you were saying, using the lights, the neon light signs above Paddington in the beginning. Like, it's just an awareness of not just scene but sound in the universe, and I really love it. It works so well. I can't believe we didn't talk about it in the main, because it's fantastic.
I love it. I don't see it used often in films. There's something about Mary comes to mind, but I know I've seen some other ones where they keep passing like somebody who's performing. Often it's like somebody in a subway or whatever, and I think it works really well in context here. Plus, it kind of gives it, it's weirdly, it sounds like a Caribbean sort of beat. It doesn't really fit Peru or London, but it does kind of give you this sense of a scope of the world, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Certainly how international the community is, right? As white as the Browns are, the community is quite diverse.
Yes.
All right, how to do it award season.
It wasn't a huge awards player, interestingly, considering the popularity. It only had 3 wins with 7 other nominations. At the BAFTAs, it was nominated for the Alexander Korda Award for Best British Film, but lost to The Theory of Everything. Likewise, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but lost also to The Theory of Everything. At the Saturn Awards, we love those. It was nominated for Best Fantasy Film, but lost to, interestingly, The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. Behind the Voice Actors Awards, we already talked about our love for Ben Whishaw. He was nominated for Best Male Lead Vocal Performance in a Feature Film, but lost to Ben Kingsley as the voice of Archibald Snatcher in The Box Trolls. Which is, that's a fun one. I think I'll be curious to see how he does in Paddington 2.
Yeah.
At the British Screenwriters Awards, it won Best British Feature Film Writing. At the Empire Awards, it won Best Comedy and was nominated for Best British Film, but lost to Kingsman: The Secret Service. At the Golden Trailer Awards, nominated for Best Voiceover TV Spot, but lost to McFarland USA, and nominated for Best Animation or Family Movie Poster, but lost to Minions. Last but not least, it won the Best Screenplay from the Writers Guild of Great Britain. So, yeah, again, a decent showing, I guess, for what the film was doing.
Okay, then how did it do at the box office? If it didn't do great in the awards category, surely it made some money.
Well, there were definitely expectations with the movie, as King had a budget of $55 million for this family film, which is $59.4 million in today's dollars. At the time, it was actually Studio Canal's most expensive film that they had ever produced, which really surprised me when I read that. The movie was released November 28th, 2014 in the UK, then slowly rolled out around the world over the next few months, opening in the US on January 16th, 2015, where it opened in the #1 slot opposite The Wedding Ringer, Black Hat, Spare Parts, and the limited release of Still Alice. The movie went on to earn $76.3 million domestically and $206.1 million internationally, for a total gross of $305 million. That lands it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of almost $2.6 million. That is a great start for this little bear.
Oh, that is a great start, Paddington. You're raking it in. Look at all that marmalade. You diabetic freak.
I will tell you, this film started this mad passion that I have now for orange marmalade. Oh, it's so good.
Do you really?
Oh, it's so good.
You like
I want my own
right?
marmalade day where I told my wife, I'm like, we just need to have a marmalade day and make marmalade all day.
I need to check out marmalade because the last time I had marmalade, the bits of peel in it, I didn't care for.
Oh my God, I love that. That's the best part. All right. Well, closing thoughts.
Oh, closing thoughts. I'm glad we did this. I don't think you could have gotten any more sort of opposite in terms of our second series after Star Wars than Paddington Bear. But I think after talking about it, he is a worthy successor in the space. I'm glad we're getting in a series of great family films, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with it. This is a great movie.
I am thrilled too. I'm just going to say, as a connection to our last franchise that we just talked about, this is the original Star Wars trilogy, we would likely not have this style of Paddington had it not been for George Lucas and the team at ILM playing around with special effects, coming up with what they could do with the digital magic involving Pixar and everything, as we saw in the Light and Magic docuseries. All of the work that they started with the Star Wars franchise really evolved the technology so that we could actually have this Paddington. So look at that.
Okay, you're right. You made the case.
It's all a thread that I'm weaving here.
Does it feel dirty to just keep thanking George Lucas for stuff?
Jar Jar Binks. Thanks you, George.
Misa, no think so.
Here we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, Paddington 2.
Mr. Gruber. Oh, what's this?
This is London.
It's wonderful. Aunt Lucy always dreamed of coming to London. If she saw this, it would be like she were finally here. Aunt Lucy!
Oh, Paddington.
This is perfect. I've had a brilliant idea. I'm going to get a job and buy that book for Aunt Lucy's birthday. Hello? Window cleaner?
Ow.
Are you quite sure you're ready for the workplace, Paddington?
It's Phoenix Buchanan, Dad's celebrity client.
I suppose you know who I am.
Oh, yes. You're a very famous actor.
VIP, celebrity.
Or used to be. Now you do dog food commercials.
This pop-up book, where on earth did you find it?
Mr. Gruber's antique shop. Stop! Freeze!
Hold it right there.
Oh, but I'm not the thief.
Mysterious things have been happening all over town.
We're rich again.
I may look like a hardened criminal, but I'm innocent.
We're going to need a foolproof plan.
If anyone can recognize a criminal, it's us.
He's a master of disguise.
What?
This is breaking and entering. We haven't broken anything.
Where do you think you're going, Bear?
Paddington wouldn't hesitate if any of us needed help.
He looks for the good in all of us.
Marmalade.
Take a seat. Come on, Wolfie.
Ow.
All right, it's time for Letterboxd, everybody. If you want to get your own pro or patron membership at Letterboxd, the best social network for movie lovers. They're fantastic, and they're great partners for us. All you have to do is use the discount code NEXTREEL, or just visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd, and you can get your 20% off. Works for new signups and renewals as well. What are you going to do for your Letterboxd rating, Andy? Are you gonna 5-star heart it?
I always land at 4.5 with this one, and I don't know why. It very likely fits into exactly what I look for in 5-star films. You know me, but I still end up kind of feeling like 4.5 feels really good with this one. So 4.5 and a big, big heart for Paddington. How about you?
Well, Andy, You know who I am, right?
Pete, no half stars right.
Pete, no half stars right. Therefore, the question is not 4 or 4.5. It's 4 or 5. And that is very clearly a 5 for me. The more I watch this movie, the more I like it. And I love that feeling of coming back to movies and having nice headroom to keep saying that they're great. I think when I first watched it, it was 4. There was a time where I was a half-star guy, like a real half-star slob, and I was 4.5. and now that I'm no half stars, it's definitely a 5 and a heart. So there you go.
It's an easy one to love. That is for sure. Well, everybody, don't forget, visit thenextreel.com/letterboxd. You can get your patron or pro membership over at Letterboxd. And as Pete said, it works for renewals as well. So what did you think about Paddington? We would love to hear. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking this week about the movie.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andy.
As Letterboxd always doeth. I've got a long one.
I have not that long, but it is a half star.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you kick things off?
Okay. All right. This comes from Clementinings. IDEK, where to begin? I'd rate this 0 stars if given the generous opportunity. This movie is unrealistic and cruel. No bear talks, wears clothes, or does humanely activities. It's sickening. It's wrong. Whoever wrote this and produced it need to be looked into by 350 different therapists before being allowed to make another movie. If this movie was shown in cinemas without any censoring, I fear for what is to come. Ever since I have seen Paddington, I've had a strong urge to violently throw up. This review is even difficult to type as I throw my phone in absolute rage every time P''Dington came up. It doesn't even look like a bear because no bears walk on 2 feet. This movie and its fans need to be thrown into space and never mentioned again.
Wow.
And it has 3 likes.
Of course it does. Well, I went high. I went high in popularity and ratings. 4 stars by Izzy, who had this to say. Paddington is sad? Saddington. Paddington floods the house? Baddington. Paddington loses his mind? Maddington. Paddington starts a family? Daddington. Paddington offers to buy the next round? Absolute Laddington. Paddington, but only a bit? Just a Taddington. Paddington replaces the current actor to play Olaf in a Frozen sequel? Josh Gaddington. Paddington accidentally headbutts Emma Stone? Super Baddington. Paddington does a flip on his pastel blue penny board in downtown Cali with the sound of the ocean breeze filling his ears as the palm trees sway in the wind and trace his yin-yang wrist tattoo? Raddington. Do I regret starting this because I can't find a good place to stop? You bet your Assington. Okay, that didn't work. My Baddington.
That's adorable.
Almost as adorable as the movie itself.
Man, there are so many really negative reviews. And they all do that thing, like throw you up into space if you like this movie. Like, he's not funny. What brain rot do you have to like this?
It's a weird
place
to go.
People and talking bears. Okay. Thanks, Letterboxd.
It is hard to believe we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material from all of our adapted film discussions. Purchasing through our links support the show at no extra cost to you.
In season 12, the focus was big franchises and series. We covered both Paddington films, adapted from the beloved children's book character created by Michael Bond.
Oh, I love those films so much.
Hugh Grant is perfect.
For our Pitch Perfect series, the first film was adapted from Mickey Rapkin's nonfiction book about collegiate a cappella competitions.
It's like a short story of my life, literally. I lived college a cappella.
Sing it, brother.
I lived college a cappella.
I didn't mean literally.
You know who you're talking to, right? The Twilight Saga dominated the season with 5 films adapted from Stephenie Meyer's vampire romance novels, Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and the 2 Breaking Dawn parts.
Dominated with awkward romance and nonsense logic is more like it.
That too.
Another Thin Man brought us back to Dashiell Hammett's only Thin Man sequel based on other Hammett material, The Farewell Murder, that wasn't just based on the characters from the first film.
We talked about Trainspotting and its sequel, T2 Trainspotting, adapted from Irvine Welsh's novels.
I hate the sequel's name.
I do too.
And the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy adapted from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy series.
Love these.
Extended editions all the way, baby.
Plus, all the Mission Impossible films based on the 1960s TV series.
And we've still got at least one more to go.
Members got to hear us chat about The Hustler and The Color of Money, adapted from Walter Tevis's books.
Get all of these books and more at our originals page, thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals.